I just can't believe it hasn't been done yet already.
Right?
A 360 camera that's also a drone. I mean, these two worlds are sort of made for each other, really.
You cannot recreate what you do with a long lens and a real camera on a smartphone. I don't care what smartphone it is.
I've been sort of looking for my moment to use it and find the inspiration because the film is so expensive. I feel like I have to make the most of it.
You're not buying these cameras basically because you want to get the most high performance tech, are you? You're buying them because you're wanting to experiment and play with something different.
I just don't believe there will be a good Netflix show or any kind of big movie that gets any kind of critical acclaim that is entirely AI.
Welcome everyone to the 21st episode of the TechRadar podcast. My name is Josephine Watson and I'm joined as always today by Hamish Hector.
Hello.
Lance Ulanoff.
Hello.
As well as special guest Tim Coleman.
Hey.
And Amelia Schwanke.
Hi there.
This week we're talking all things cameras, from traditional form factors to new and exciting creative tools. We'll be unpacking Insta360 and DJI's recent dalliances into each other's core markets and throwing our 2 cents into the great smartphone versus camera debate. But first, here's Hamish with this week's rendition of In Case You Missed It.
Thanks, Josie. With this cameras-focused podcast, we've got to mention the new Insta360 anti-gravity. While not a lot is known about this drone, we have been told it's the world's first 360-degree drone, teasing impressive capabilities which might give DJI a run for its money. Now, that might be especially true in the US, as the long-awaited DJI ban looks to be taking effect. Products are steadily becoming unavailable at many US stores, and new releases are seemingly set to skip the American market, not just DJI's drones, but its other camera gear too. Last episode, we talked about Bee, an AI smart band which records your conversations so it can act as a personal assistant. Since that episode, it's been announced that the company is joining Amazon, which we speculate could lead to some kind of Alexa watch wearable, but we'll have to watch this space. Sticking with AI, Disney has joined Netflix in testing the controversial Runway AI tools, and might soon join its rival in using AI to help make original movies and TV shows, with Lionsgate, AMC, and more from Hollywood already exploring the tech as well. And here in the UK, where 4/5 from today's podcast are based, the government just passed the Online Safety Act, and people aren't happy. The rules are designed to help protect minors from accessing age-inappropriate content, but adults aren't happy with the rollout, as it's forcing them to share their IDs with services they aren't comfortable doing so with, especially after the major T-hack that happened recently. Similar rules are soon set to be launched in other countries, so some people are already trying to find workarounds, but I've got a better suggestion for legislators that I think might make everyone happy.
Let's talk then about this Online Safety Act. So you've got an idea for how you think it could be better implemented. What's your sort of take on it?
So at the moment, I think the law is generally a pretty good thing. I think, making sure people are only accessing content that's age appropriate is generally a positive, though we've sort of seen some workarounds. The one that we sort of alluded to is people are trying to use video games and photo modes to try and cheat various systems with, I think, not a lot of effect. I think there may be reports of 1 or 2 people sneaking through, but actually it's not really that effective.
And it's on very specific platforms,
it's very
the KID
specific
on Discord being the main one.
Yeah, it's not really a good solution for anybody. So the thing that I've sort of been looking into is apparently quite a few countries have digital IDs. So it's where you have, version of your ID that's digital. And this can be super handy for these sorts of purposes where people might need to know your data and they might need to know sort of the same info over and over again. So rather than having to fill out your address in a dozen different forms when you move, you can just, link them all to one form and it gets spread out really easily. And so the thinking that I had was, well, a lot of these apps and services don't need to know all of your information. They don't need to see your driver's license or passport. They just need to know what your age is.
Yeah.
So if the UK had something really similar, kind of like how you have a 2-factor authentication app on your phone, you could just, push a button. It gives you a one-time unique use code. You scan that in, however it is, and it goes, cool, I know this person's a real person and that they are over 18. I don't know anything else about them, but that's all I need to know.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me because really what these verification services are generally doing anyway isn't actually verifying your age. It's verifying that you have a government-issued document that proves you are the age you're saying you are. I've done a lot of work in the online safety space. It was actually how I got my start in journalism, was doing a debate about it on TV. And it's a really important thing to come in. I can understand, especially with the fact that the government has not issued like specific verification services that should be used, and that quite a few of those are overseas, is really what a lot of people have issues with. And like you say, especially in light of the T-hack, that's a problem.
They're not the first company to do this. They almost certainly won't be the last. And obviously that starts to mean, you're a bit uncomfortable sharing info. I don't mind flashing my driver's license at a pub or a bar if I want to go inside, because, they've got that for all of 5 seconds. But yeah, the idea that my ID could just be on some system, could get hacked one day, that could lead to some serious problems. Not ideal. And as someone also affecting this act, like we all are, I'm not super keen to share that around with a bunch of different websites.
No, but I think the thing that's really important to highlight is this is now coming into law. We do not endorse anyone being frivolous with either Norman Reedus' face from Death Stranding's photo mode, which was, like you said, successful for a limited number of people, specifically on Discord.
They worked out ways around it.
Yeah. Now, Lance, I'm really interested to hear how you think the rollout of something like this would look in a country like the US, where sovereignty is quite important to people.
First of all, it would be met in a similar fashion in that everyone immediately would look for workarounds. Every time that we talk about age verification, identity verification online, people complain in the US about anonymity, the loss of anonymity, because that is for certain groups that is actually really important, that they do not have to say exactly who they are, any details about themselves in order to participate, because the details might leave them open to attack. This is a fairly limited thing in that it's really looking at age verification, which might give some people some comfort. I do think that Hamish should be in Parliament right now because obviously he has a fairly good suggestion. In fact, what I have heard talked about is using the blockchain as a way of creating sort of immutable tokens that are your identity, and being able to use that everywhere, sort of carrying that from place to place, which would include your age and other details that you might want to include, but really at the base would probably just be about the age verification. Um, you know, we just saw in Australia that they're banning social media use for kids under a certain age, I think under 16. And so, this is a trend. It's going to make its way around the world. I fully expect, when they're busy, they're done applying tariffs everywhere, for the attention in the US to maybe turn back to stuff like this, because there's been a lot of concern about the harm that social media and other platforms and adult content might have on young people. And so I think there is this interest in some sort of regulation and some sort of ability to control it, but done in a safe way, and that also a way that does not harm your privacy. So that's a high bar. And it doesn't sound like the UK has entirely figured that out, especially because they're just leaving it like do the verification however you want, use whoever you want. So they're not suggesting, they're not guiding, they're not making rules about that, and that's probably the core of the problem.
Because I think most people, probably everyone, would agree that people only getting access to content that's age appropriate is good.
Yeah.
But it's just, exactly, it's frustrating when you're all lumped into this same boat and people are then going to get mad about it.
Yeah.
I would just add, to be realistic about this, that access to information, access to content that children should not, or young teens should not have access to, is a really difficult problem, because it's like a sieve. It's just there's so many access points, and there's so many different ways that kids are going to encounter this stuff, and so it becomes really difficult to manage and control. And so I always tell people the same thing. It's that for your kids to have a responsible life online, you have to start with them early, for them to understand when and where they should be accessing and using technology, period, and then when and where and how they should be accessing the content they can get there. So, parents that hand their kids tablets and phones when they're toddlers in the cart, and they just walk around with them and they're not really paying attention, that probably has to stop in order for them to raise them in a way so that it becomes easier to apply things like this.
Definitely. And I think in some ways the thing that is good here is that they are taking the responsibility for moderation from private companies, which I think was unsustainable and has been for a long time. Encouraging people to do it is good. I think it just needs to be rolled out maybe slightly differently. And moving on to another beast that is unregulated to a point that we will probably be talking about for the next 10 years, AI. Now, Hamish mentioned that story there about Disney using some AI. What's happening there, Amelia? Because entertainment is kind of your beat on TechRadar, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really big entertainment story, actually, because it's our first story where we're seeing a case of such a high-profile streaming service using generative AI. So Netflix used it in a sci-fi show to reconstruct a building collapsing. Why that's a big deal is because we had the Hollywood writers' strikes not too long ago. That was all about putting in place safeguards to protect these VFX artists and these animators. And now we're seeing all these streaming services making inroads in with actually one particular startup called Runway AI. And what's notable about that is we've got Disney working with them, we've got Netflix working with them, AMC. They're like all piling on at the moment. So it's just a real case of where is it going, where does it stop kind of thing. Because before this we had voice enhancements tech, and then we had AI upscaling, but now we're actually generating whole scenes of TV shows. So yeah, and there's also talk now that Runway AI has developed a text-to-video game generator. So they've got their eyes set on the gaming market next, which is the bigger market in the entertainment space at the end of the day. So yeah, no, it's a big deal. It's quite scary. We'll see what happens.
Do we know any particular shows or films they might be using it in the next couple of months or years?
I don't know about forward-looking shows, but the case where they used generative AI was this sci-fi show, and it was called the Ethernet, and I'm probably pronouncing
the Eternaut. Where was that?
You.
Was
that
an
Argentinian?
Argentinian, that was it.
Adapted from an Argentinian comic in this newspaper.
I watched some of it. It's a great show, and
it's a really
the special effects
story.
Are good in it. I don't know if all of them are AI, but
exactly, and that's when you start to question things, isn't it?
The thing is, it's hard. So many of them use CGI, right? And they're not the same thing in that, some artists artist has to start. CGI usually is based on sometimes models or sometimes drawings, and generative AI scenes are based on a prompt. But in the end result, it's very hard to tell the difference. So I don't know if I've seen. I'll only learn after the fact when, for example, somebody's dialogue is massaged by AI or some small part of, just to go back, I remember the big deal it was in Jurassic Park, the very original Jurassic Park, when there's a scene when a young girl's being pulled up, like she's just about to be pulled up before the dinosaurs get her, but the actress, who was a stunt double, looked up. And because she looked up, well, it wasn't the actor that she was replacing, right? So they digitally put the face of the girl, the actress, on her. And that was a very big deal at the time. Like, wow, what had they done? And we're so far along now that I watch entire scenes in TV shows and movies and even games, and they're all generated by the computer with artists behind them. I couldn't tell you. And believe me, that's the slippery slope. We're not going to know the difference.
And it wasn't that long since CGI started being used more. And that was also controversial with practical effects people in Hollywood for a long time. So it is part of this evolution process.
Disney's been doing all that de-aging tech for all their movies, haven't they, for years?
I'm using that right now.
In terms of sort of falling off things, in terms of AI being used, I think Secret Invasion, the Marvel show that sort of could have been really fun, ended up being a bit rubbish, if I'm honest.
It was a bit rubbish.
They used AI in the intro scene, right? Sort of the title cards, I think, because it was meant to sort of be a bit sort of human, but not quite human, sort of as the theme of like, who scrolls and who's not scrolls. It kind of looked really bad. I think that there was maybe an interesting idea that could have happened artistically there. It didn't really land for people. I know that was sort of a much disliked thing.
Getting meta AI commentary using AI is probably the least effective way to make that argument.
I remember I sort of did finish that though, but I fell off the most recent Call of Duty game because some of the art rewards they would give out, you can get loading screens and things. They were basically discovered to be AI because, it was the classic thing of, that zombie that's reaching towards you has a sixth finger and all this other stuff. The telltale signs of sort of early AI art. I think in terms of it being used in editing and with movies, my fiance is sort of in the film industry, so this is something she cares a lot about. She's very, very anti-AI, and a lot of people she knows are anti-AI, but she also knows people that are starting to think about using it in various ways. And I feel like it probably, hopefully, will end up like lots of these tools that we have already, where you will have, editing will still be mostly done by human, because I think there's still a lot of human creativity that comes into play with, a lighting guy speaking to the director saying, oh, I think we should tweak this scene a little bit. And then but you don't get with an AI, because it will just make what you tell it to. But also, I think, it will just make some of these jobs a little bit easier for people. And then there will be other jobs and roles that people will be able to take in the industry. I think it's sort of coming in and just making the whole thing will happen for some content, probably shorts content on TikTok and YouTube and all of that. But I just don't believe there will be a good Netflix show or any kind of big movie that gets any kind of critical acclaim that is entirely AI.
I hope not.
And I don't think that will ever happen. And I will,
eat your hat.
I will eat my hat. I just don't think it can happen. I don't think there will be a movie that someone goes, that is better than anything a human can make.
Yeah.
Let's talk in 5 years.
I could see a movie maybe winning awards, and then we realise after the event that it was made with AI.
Which
that would cause...
has happened in the photography world, right? You've reported on it.
One guy putting a load of prompts in. I think the team, it would still require so much human input to make it work. Obviously, AI could be involved, but I meant like fully just one person at a desk typing in something and it's spitting out absolutely everything. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Well, moving on to the artistry that is in our hands. Tim, World Photography Day is round the corner, and you are our resident cameras expert on TechRadar. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about what the sort of big trends are in cameras this year. Like, what are people looking for in cameras? What are you seeing come out in new cameras? Where's it at?
Sure. So I would say there's been a few years where camera brands have really sought for the most impressive specs, the most megapixels in their cameras, the biggest zooms in their lenses, the quickest frame rates and all this stuff. And that's how they impress people. But we've seen a shift away from that. Two kind of trends I'm seeing. One is compact cameras, so the miniaturization of cameras. And another one is just feeling over function. So cameras that you really enjoy using. It doesn't matter if they've got 60 megapixels or 10. It's just how they feel in the hand and how they look as well. So Fujifilm with its X100 series, that has been probably the most popular camera I've seen in my lifetime. The X100 VI, I think, was the most pre-ordered camera ever. Wow. And this is it's like a $1,700 compact camera, can't even swap lenses. It looks great.
Yeah.
Shoots really nice pictures. It is a very capable camera too, but it's an expensive premium compact. And I would say this year, the most talked about camera is probably the Sigma BF.
Yes, we've seen a lot about that on the website.
People tout it as the camera that Apple would have made. And it's just totally different. It does away with a load of the rules. It's not Japanese by design. A lot of Japanese cameras, they put in loads of buttons and controls so you have access to everything. And this is intentionally minimalist and stripped back, and it's just one block of aluminum, and it's beautiful and it's frustrating to use at the same time, but you get feelings with it. And so that camera has been the most talked about this year so far.
It's that sort of tactile experience, I think, perhaps, though, that's really capturing people at the moment. And it's something you've brought up before because you reviewed the Instax Wide Evo earlier this year, and that's quite tactile and also quite nostalgic, right? Do you think that some of the trends that Tim said there sort of carried across with that camera when you tried it?
100%. No, 100%. It's about that feeling, isn't it? So it's evoking, with an Instax camera in particular, it's evoking that kind of feeling of nostalgia. Yeah. Our generation didn't really grow up with this, isn't it? This is something that was very popular in the, I want to get this right, maybe the 80s, I want to say, fast forward.
Yeah, you can check with your resident 80s expert. Yes. 70s, 80s. Yes.
Instant cameras in the
80s. 60s, 70s, 80s.
70s, okay. I was going to say 70s because I still have my dad's that he used to take all of our family pictures on. Yeah, I collect all these kind of cameras. And I think, it's the nostalgia part of it, isn't it? Like you're getting a tactile image of the back of it. And it's funny what you were saying about texture as well, because with the Instax Wide Evo, they've actually wrapped the body with this kind of textured feel, which is almost paying homage to those sort of
Like
retro
leather
cameras,
cupboards,
the leather ones
yeah,
for the
yeah.
grip that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
used to have. And it even has this wind-up crank that only prints images. It's gimmicky, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's great. Like it's you're not buying these cameras basically because you want to get the most high performance tech, are you? You're buying them because you're wanting to experiment and play with something different. And it makes you think about photography differently as well, which is why I like these kind of cameras as well. I think they serve a niche market, sure, I completely agree. They're not for like amateur photographers that want that real performance, but I still think they're fun, and for that, I really enjoy them. Do you still have your Instax Polaroid, don't you, Josie?
I have an Instax Mini, and then I also got for Christmas this year, just gone, I can't actually remember the model name of it, but it's the digital Polaroid that has like an app connection, and you can use the app to like take pictures even when you're not standing by the camera and adjust the settings on it and stuff. It's really, really cool. I've been sort of looking for my moment to use it and find the inspiration because the film is so expensive. I feel like I have to make the most of it. But I am dealing with the thought that I probably have to just get out and experiment and like you say, feel the camera. Which leads me on to a question for everyone here. Like, what to you is the most enjoyable way of taking a photo? Because nowadays it's not just, traditional mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, it's also your phones, it's instant cameras, it's a bit of everything. So I'll start with you, Hamish, actually. What's your favourite thing to take photos on? If you could choose anything.
Oh, well, I think if I could choose anything, it would be a camera that's a bit more tactile. I've always liked the idea of cameras. The idea of cameras, man.
The concept of cameras.
I remember when I was a kid, I had some kind of, I don't know specifically what brand it is, but it was an instant camera. It would print things out for me. It was quite a big, chunky, boxy thing that eventually got covered in stickers. It's all things that owned by kids do.
Yeah.
And
Some collector is crying out
I remember
there.
really liking it, and I just also remember, I don't know why, but my parents must have just been like, oh, we'll just throw a sort of various Polaroid refills at him.
Out of interest, do you enjoy photography any more or less now you've got a foldable phone? Because obviously that adds a lot of different utilities for positioning the camera and taking shots.
I think I do. It's fun to take the selfie because you can sort of set it up so you've got it opened up so you can sort of see the selfie. Oh, that's my
train ticket. There we go.
You can see the selfie on this outer screen while you're taking the picture, which is really handy. And I actually really enjoyed using the Google Pixel 9 Pro when we were out in Madeira.
Yeah.
Go and watch the video on YouTube.
Like and subscribe.
Because the Add Me feature and some of these, going back to AI features, and
yeah.
some of those tools are really handy just for, I don't want to give someone my phone to take a picture of us while we're on holiday, or my camera. You can just, you do it manually. I did it recently on a holiday I took with Izzy and a lot of other people, and it means that we've got a 20-odd person photo that includes all 20 of us without there needing to be a 21st person that's sort of not involved at all.
Or anyone who knows how to use Photoshop.
Or anyone that knows how to use Photoshop.
It's the best take as well, isn't there?
Best take
Always.
is kind of handy, which I think just for those, like, we've only got to take a couple of photos, you're not trying to really artistically quick look through everything. So maybe that's kind of cool, but I guess there's sort of with instant cameras and all this other stuff, I guess there's sort of a artisticness to the fact that that's the picture you've taken. It might not be completely perfect, but it's very real.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk a bit more about the sort of smartphone and cameras debate later. But Lance, what about you? What do you take photos on mostly?
Well, obviously, for simple convenience, it's going to be the phone, and probably if you've read any of my stuff, you'd realize that I'm a little obsessed with the telephoto lens. Like, that's a big deal for me. And what I really enjoy taking photos with the most are sort of lightweight micro four third cameras with bigger lenses, like 200 millimeter, 300 millimeter lens. That's what I really like because I love to take pictures of bird photography. You really got to get set up. You find these different. I'm literally a bird watcher. I'm like one of those weirdos, and there's something you cannot recreate what you do with a long lens and a real camera on a smartphone. I don't care what smartphone it is. You cannot recreate that. And that's nothing against you. I am stunned at the leaps we have taken in smartphone photography since we really first started with it. And I was taking pictures with my smartphone, I think like more than 20 years ago, because they had cameras, but they were all crap. Even videos, and now we have these bigger lenses, and reading one of Tim's things about the Oppo with the 1-inch sensor in it. But But the thing I always explain to people is that it honestly doesn't matter that much about the sensor if you don't have great optics. The optics, the lenses are everything. And so, I have a Sony Alpha that I use. I have a Canon R1, that I use. I have one that's a 300 millimeter lens, was a 200 millimeter. But the Sony is kind of my favorite in that it's the lightest with the combination of a big lens and a light camera. That's my jam. And if I'm on vacation, I'll be taking that with me and taking pictures
Very
of
nice.
birds.
Tim, what about yourself? What's your camera of choice? You've got like the world at your fingertips, so it's hard for you to choose.
Well, yeah, I mean, as TechRadar's cameras editor, I can't really say my favourite's a phone, is it?
No.
And good news, it's not. Although the phones are great. This is the Oppo phone that Lance was mentioning. It's is a great camera phone. What do I like the most? I like using a camera because it's not a phone. Phones are great for photography, but they're phones and they have WhatsApp on them and they have email and all this stuff. And I know I can shut that off. I can put it in airplane mode, but it's still there.
Still there in the back of your mind as well.
So for photography, absolutely. If I'm making the effort, like in a couple of weeks, I'm going on vacation to a beauty spot in the UK called the Lake District.
Lovely.
And I'm going to take a big camera with me. I don't care how big it is. It's going to have a lovely lens. I might even take a tripod as well and be really intentional and lug all that heavy stuff and set it up by a beautiful lake with a mountain and just make it a really intentional thing. And I think that's something that a phone can never be, even though it's got a camera. It's not just a camera, it's everything. And so if I'm doing photography for my own self and how I feel, I'm going to use a camera. I'm not brand loyal. I've got a few cameras, and generally the camera I'm using is the one that I'm reviewing for TechRadar at the time. So, right now I have this Sony RX1R3, which was just launched. That's a great street photography camera. It's really compact, but it's not going to be perfect for everything. So, I have a few cameras for different reasons.
But it's definitely a camera, not a phone, is the overall
Definitely
message.
Cameras.
Yeah, I like that.
Get cameras, people. Buy a camera. They're great.
Especially through techradar.com, where you can read all of Tim's guides on the best cameras. And Amelia, what about yourself? What's your method of choice for photography?
So I'm quite like Tim. I don't have the luxury of just brands coming at me with different cameras, but I do have a collection at home. So like I was saying earlier, like I have my dad's old Polaroid. I have my Polaroids as well. I'm even a purist, Hamish, when it comes to the Polaroid, because they now have printers.
Yes.
That you can get, which my partner bought me one as well. I hated it.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm such a purist when it comes to the Polaroid. Like, it has to be, if it is just a black screen that comes out at the end, fine, that's what it was meant to be. But like, I like that experimentation. I like that you don't know what you're going to get really with it. So yeah, I have a collection at home. I'm a Sony Alpha person. I really rate the brand. I love Sony cameras. I think they're excellent. But I used to be Canon. I started off with a bulky Canon DSLR that used to lug around with me. And I quickly stopped doing that because, when you are traveling and you only got a few things, like, it does add so much extra weight. But I will say I think it's worth it for the pictures it takes, and I think it's a lot better than what you'd get from your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. I go down a slightly different road in terms of the quality conversation, because my method of choice, especially recently, has actually been disposable cameras, which not the best from an environmental perspective, I agree, but I bought one to go again on that Madeira trip. I still haven't developed the film because, spoiler alert, really hard to do that these days for disposable cameras. You can't just go down to
You can't just go down to
No,
Boots?
you can't just go down to Boots.
Snappy
and-
snaps.
Come to.
Yeah, snappy snaps. I'm
Well
going there this weekend, don't you worry. The thing I really enjoyed about it is the fact that I haven't seen the photos yet. Even with an instant camera, it's instant, right? You can see the photo. I have this real thing inside of me. It's been like a month and a bit since we got back from Madeira, and I'm like, I don't know what these photos look like. I did not take multiple shots even in some of the challenging shots I tried to take, and that is so exciting to me.
I think I like the idea of film, but I don't like the idea of the costs and the environmental impact on film anymore.
If I hadn't have had this trip, I don't think I'd have done it again. But it was nice. But I agree, it's not best.
And there are digital cameras now that are trying to replicate the film photography experience.
It's not the same.
Got a Curious over here. In-house Curious over here. The Fujifilm X half. That's a cute little Fujifilm retro style compact, and it has quite literally a film roll mode in it, where you pick your film. It's a Fujifilm film simulation, and then you activate it, and then it shuts the screen down, so you can no longer use the screen.
Oh, that's quite cool.
You have the little window with the film roll, the film roll that you're using, and then you quite literally have to take 36, 54, 72 photos before the film is up, and then you have to send it off to the app, like the lab, the photo lab, to then see your photos, and they're developed in the app.
That's so cute. I love that.
It's crazy because I just think about how people, other than you and Amelia, Tim, who wouldn't even know what the different film means, like the speeds. That was when we were choosing film, when I used to actually develop my own film, and you had to choose the speed of your film to know, what and that would help define what you were going to get. So in a situation where you're trying to recreate a film speed, people, they have to teach them what the ISOs mean, which is so crazy to me.
There's another fun little camera that was launched earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, called the Camp Snap camera.
Ooh.
And that's basically like a disposable camera, exactly the same style, same lo-fi quality, but it's digital. It's screen-free, so you can't see the photos. The first time you'll be able to see them is when you're back from your school trip and you plug the camera into your computer. So, I mean, it's a very basic camera, but I think they really nailed the concept. Total screen-free camera, and it's fun.
It's
fun.
It's putting those limitations on yourself.
Yeah.
Even we were talking about the Sigma BF, like putting those limitations on the craft and finding your workarounds for them. And that can go for phones too. I certainly find that I presume my iPhone 15 Pro is broken because of how many issues I have with the camera, and those camera issues have been verified by other people who have used it. It is not me being dumb. I am, but that's not the situation here. Even with that, it creates a challenge, and I have to find creative ways to get the shots I want to get. And I think any camera that can do that specifically is amazing. This should work. Phones should just work because they are there for that utility. You've seen something happen quickly, and you're just, I'm going to grab a snap of it.
I tried a digital detox experiment this week where I folded the screen away of my camera, so I went totally screen-free. And because I find that with digital cameras, when you're taking pictures, you're so often taking it and then looking at the photo, reviewing, then going, I need to change this, change that composition, change that setting, and going again. And it's somehow, I don't know, it interrupts the moment. And so I tried a digital detox with my digital camera, where I folded the screen away. And there was something refreshing in not knowing if the photo I took was actually exposed correctly, like the right brightness, if the composition was any good. And I was really uncomfortable to begin with, as I'm so used to sort of, point, shoot, review, repeat. But it was really nice taking the review part out and just really engaging with the people or the place that I was with.
I would love to see an iPhone app that does this, that basically just gives you like a small viewfinder, and you just had to take, so it's small, like you were looking through the old school, and just takes one picture, and then you don't see it. Maybe there's even a timer until you've gone through like 30 shots, and that would actually be pretty cool. I would use that app.
I mean, it's kind of a slight segue, but it's kind of also why we saw apps like BeReal rise to such popularity, right? It's returning photography to something that is not sanitized, that is not, you've not been given the opportunity to take 20 different shots of the same thing. You've had to move on and find another thing to shoot. And that's something I think about often, think about all the shots you don't take when you're trying to get the perfect one of something that just maybe isn't lining up properly, or maybe it isn't meant to be. And BeReal was a similar kind of thing, wherein
it's still going. It's still around.
Of course, it's still around. No. I speak about it only in the past sense, in terms of like the insane popularity it had at first. I think especially among our age demographic, it fell off a little bit because 90% of the time it's going to come up while you're at work. And I didn't really enjoy scrolling through and seeing an endless feed of my friends at their desk with various different Excel spreadsheets open on their laptops. Didn't quite hit the itches that yeah, exactly. It was just a bit depressing.
But sometimes it does hit when you do something really cool, and that's great.
Yeah.
And then it's spreadsheet. Oh yeah, you're on a speedboat. Spreadsheet. This person's in front of the Eiffel Tower, and just keep going.
Exactly. No, it is a great idea. It's a great app. And I think, Lance's suggestion there about some sort of like locker app that would keep your phone photography, I think that's a great way of bringing some of those things to phones instead of to cameras. But also, what you talked about there, that digital detox thing, I would love to do something like that. It's the closest thing I can compare is going from 4 years of being a digital artist only, not using any paints or pencils or anything, despite that being my main form before I ever picked up my iPad. And then I got a canvas recently and I painted on a canvas, and it was this real thing of like, I can't hit undo. I can't make this look better. I have to really live in this moment and work with whatever comes out. And it's a liberating feeling and one that we encourage everyone to do.
I picture Josie in front of her canvas trying to do this, like stretch it.
Enhance. Exactly. So we're going to chat about some different kinds of form factors for cameras these days, which is 360 cameras and drones. Rose to popularity massively in the last 10, 15 years. You see drones come up in conversation a lot more than they used to, whether that's because people are worried about security or privacy, or it's because they're worried about getting hit in the head when they're walking around Trafalgar Square, like I nearly did a few weeks ago when someone was flying a drone, I'm pretty sure illegally.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you're allowed to buy them, no people. There's a lot of rules and stuff.
No, it was very frightening. Anyway, two of the biggest names in these sort of new form factor spaces are Insta360 and DJI, both of which have had astonishingly timed news in the last week or two that seems to suggest they're dabbling in each other's markets. So, Tim, let's start with the Insta360 story. Hamish mentioned a little bit already. They're doing this collaboration with anti-gravity. What's that going to look like, do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's the single biggest tech release of the year in the world of cameras. And anti-gravity is the world's first 360 drone. It shoots 8K video. It's less than 250 grams, which means basically anyone can use one. It doesn't have the restrictions of heavier drones. That's what we know so far. It sounds to me like an Insta360 camera that flies, and they make the best 360 cameras. So if anti-gravity is incubated by Insta360, we can be sure the tech's going to be great. What's exciting to me about it is, I just can't believe it hasn't been done yet already.
Right.
A 360 camera that's also a drone. I mean, these two worlds are sort of made for each other, really. And it's just loads of exciting potential with it, really. I've flown quite a lot of DJI drones, and they're great. DJI is easily the leading drone maker. They make the best value drones, the highest quality camera drones, and no one can argue that. But Insta360 now has something that DJI doesn't, a 360 drone. And honestly, the scope for it is huge. The flying experience, we're told it's going to be super immersive flight. So that makes me think, how are we going to be able to control the drone?
Yeah.
The way that we view what the camera sees from up high. But then also the kind of video effects you can make, the edits and all that stuff. I've seen plenty of really dynamic edits from 360 cameras and putting those effects, but putting them up a few hundred meters, so much potential.
Do we have an idea of sort of how much this thing will cost? Because Izzy and I have been playing around with a DJI 4K Mini that she got for Christmas. It's a lot of fun, and I think that's like a.
Are you the ones who hit me in the head in Trafalgar
Square? No, we're very, very careful. But I think that's about £249. So it's it's not cheap, but it's fairly affordable in terms of drone tech. Is there any sort of indication of how much this Insta360 one might cost? Is it probably going to be quite pricey compared to...
Big question mark. It'll be pricier than that.
Pricier than that.
Based purely on the tech that's in the drone. We don't know what it's going to come with, how it's going to be. Are you going to shoot with it, view it on your phone, by a controller, by a headset? We don't know any of that.
Okay.
And any of those options could really change the price. But then the actual drone itself, it's a 360 camera, so it's got twin sensors in there. So immediately the drone hardware itself is going to be at least twice the price, at a guess, from that fair. DJI Mini 4K.
Wow. Okay. Good starting point then. Good starting point. This is going to be the most Luddite question I could possibly ask, but why has no one done this before? Like, even just the sense of like just strapping a 360 camera on a drone. Like, what's been the challenge that sort of stops something like this from coming to market?
Well, that has been done before.
Yeah.
There's been a 360 module that you could strap onto a drone.
Okay, cool.
Slightly lesser known fact. I don't know a lot about that drone, but I think one of the technical challenges is how, from a 360 camera, like with a regular 360 camera, you have an invisible selfie stick mode, so that hides the selfie stick in your shot. But if you if you have that camera on a drone, how do you hide the drone from your shot?
Oh, that's
how do you not
true.
get the propellers in the shot?
Because they're so wide
so that's
as well,
a technical challenge. We've got to assume that that's going to be achieved in this upcoming anti-gravity drone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how, but honestly, I guess it's just one of those moments that one company sees. We hear that anti-gravity has been in the works for years.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's accelerated with Insta360 tech. Insta360 is a relatively young company.
Yeah, I mean, 10, 15 years, probably no more than that, right?
Maybe less.
Maybe less.
I think it's less, and it's rose to prominence. I mean, last month they went public, and the founder JK became an instant billionaire.
Wow.
So. Yeah, I mean, Insta360 is in a good place right now.
Yeah. DJI, perhaps slightly less so. So let's move on to that side of things. So for one thing, just a side note I have to mention is this DJI robot vacuum that got announced on Chinese social media. The Romo, that's a whole kettle of fish that at some point I will want to discuss on this podcast. No idea if that's going to get past the US ban. But as Hamish already mentioned, the Osmo 360 camera was announced this week, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. July 31.
So that's its first 360 camera.
Yep.
What's that looking like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been talked about for a long time, and again, it's why didn't they do it before scenario. So you have Insta360 doing a drone.
Yeah.
That's DJI's market, really.
Yeah.
And now you've got DJI doing a 360 camera. That's Insta360's world. So pass me the popcorn. It's going to be fun. But I don't know. We've had a play with the Osmo 360 naturally, and it's great. Yeah, I mean, for a first 360 camera, it's really, really good. They're billing loads of world firsts with it. So the image sensors inside are larger. They're 1 inch. It's effectively twice the size of Insta360's X5 360 camera.
Oh.
Basically, it just means image quality should be better.
Nice.
In a nutshell, you can have image quality specs on paper, but what's the reality look like? We are actually doing our sort of versus tests right now.
Interesting.
So we'll see.
Make sure to check out techradar.com for the versus comparison there.
Lots of plugs today.
There's so many plugs. Do it though. Do it. The big question I have is, will this be banned in the US too? Now, considering it probably, it is a camera. Tim, you've already asked them about this, haven't you, if it's coming to the US market? Mm-hmm. What did they say?
Yeah, so at launch, there is no US availability or pricing.
Oh
no.
And what's even worse news is the pricing we have for other regions, UK, Europe, Australia, it's aggressive pricing. It's way cheaper than the Insta360 X5. And the tech inside is arguably more pricey. So DJI has gone really hard on the pricing, which just probably makes it all the more bitter if you're in the US because you can't get it. Which is kind of surprising because it's not a drone. And I thought the DJI US friction was around drones.
Yeah, Lance, what's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting that I was just looking at, we kind of forget that Insta360 is also a Chinese company, making cameras. When I think about, so the U.S. can be sort of very self-interested, right? And forgets that the global market is so big. And, DJI and other companies are kind of like, fine, we can't sell in the U.S. We'll give our cool technology. We'll sell a cool technology elsewhere. Now, DJI is not, actually banned yet in the U.S., but the clock is ticking. It could happen by the end of this year, but I want you to keep in mind something that has been happening repeatedly in the U.S. with other so-called banned Chinese companies. I point to TikTok. They just keep kicking it down the road. because it's so popular and because our president suddenly loves it because it helped him get elected, whatever. But the rules just everything kind of slides around. There is a sort of a different equation with DJI and companies that make cameras, and particularly a company like DJI, which makes cameras that can fly and that can be sent over into sensitive areas or areas where Josie's walking around. And that is obviously a security concern for the U.S. So I think the clock is ticking. Um, there is a chance it could happen, but like Tim, I've flown a lot of DJI drones, um, and I will be very sorry and very sad if they are gone because they still make the absolute best consumer drones in my consideration. Now, this other one called anti-gravity from Insta360, again, flying camera from a Chinese company. So we'll see if it ever actually makes it to US. So it's there are, by the way, unless I'm wrong. I mean, you guys tell me, Tim, maybe you know better. I can't think of a single leading US based drone company, consumer drone company, one that's really made a stamp. So we stand where I live, we stand the possibility of suddenly not having access to any of these drones. And that is happening already, right? That is definitely, as Hamish pointed out, we are finding higher prices, less availability, simply because of the fear revolving around this impending ban and possible fines if they end up, if they're in the middle of trying to ship these things in when they're not supposed to be. So um, it's just a shame because I think consumers love these things. And by the way, not just consumers, but industry. If you've watched any movies or TV in the last 5 years or so, there are always drone shots in them, and probably a lot of them are provided by DJI drones.
Public services as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I once used a drone to check the gutters in my house. So
That is
useful.
really useful.
We have seen one possible workaround for DJI drones in the US, and there's a startup that has licensed getting the hardware of a DJI drone. It's an old DJI Mavic, and they are effectively manufacturing it in Malaysia, and the software for this drone is being made in the US. And so it's a DJI drone. But because of where it's made and because of the software on board, it's going to be right to be used and sold in the US. However, it's 4 times the price.
That doesn't surprise me.
We also don't know if it's a tariffs situation as well. I don't know. I think the China tariffs are about 30% to the US.
Yeah.
It could change between me saying this and you watching the episode.
Could change between you saying
but
it and
that
getting
could be
a
a
coffee.
reason why DJI gear isn't making it to the US as well.
So we touched a little bit on a different kind of modern photography earlier in the episode in the form of smartphones. We're talking about how we all use them. But one of the things I'm really interested in, Lance, is sort of understanding a bit of the trends that's happening in terms of specs and hardware and what the audience really cares about when it comes to smartphones. You've been in the space for a long time, so you've really seen how that has evolved. What's your take on 2025 in the smartphones world for cameras?
It's really interesting that unlike the usual sort of trajectory with technology where they just add the numbers get bigger, right? It gets bigger and better, and you get more. And generally with smartphones, you've seen bigger sensors, larger lenses, more cameras, using multiple cameras together to get a special effect. But in 2025, the trend has actually been toward thinner smartphones. Thinner smartphones end up having limitations on what they can do, on limitations on the kinds of cameras and photography they can put in. Now, we are seeing on the Samsung side in particular, we're seeing higher megapixel counts spread across the range, right? We're getting the 200 megapixel sensor, although it's not the exact same sensor because of the size of the phone between the Galaxy S25 Ultra and the Galaxy Z Fold 7, both of which I've tested and both of which are doing great job on photography. So you get that, but what you don't get on the Z Fold 7, because it's so much thinner than the S25 Ultra, is the higher end telephoto. you get a 3x optical zoom instead of a 5x optical zoom because they probably couldn't fit the periscope device in there. So, they can't really you need some space to get an actual zoom, right? So you have that issue where you see, things are sort of pulled back. And then you have all the different cameras who, like the ones who are partnering up with Leica and Hasselblad to bring often not so much like the true optics that these guys have, but some of the image manipulation, some of the all of them do image processing, right? And on smartphones, one of the most important parts of the whole thing of capturing a photo is the image processing. What is done, I remember when Apple showed me when they were first really starting to do computational image processing, how they were taking many, many images at once in sort of like a millisecond and slamming them together to get the best possible image. So getting all the light and color and detail information they needed. And that's really what they all do. They kind of use the computational capabilities inside these really powerful CPUs to give you a better image. And then it just becomes a question of who's giving you the best image, who's giving you the most clarity, who's giving you the truest colors. When I write about smartphone photography, I'm often really picking on color verity because I know what I see with my eyes, and then I know what I see, what comes through the phone. And Samsung for a long time was oversaturating, and they're finally kind of stopping that. And Apple's often been best with color truth. So they're all kind of working in that direction. It's hard to know exactly what they can do with the optics, but the one rumor I'll leave you with is that on the upcoming iPhone 17, probably the 17 Pro or Pro Max, which we think we'll see in September, we may get an 8x optical zoom. That would be a big deal. That would be the biggest zoom on a smartphone that I think we've ever really seen. And I'm talking optical, not digital. I can do 100 times space zoom on a Samsung Galaxy phone, but that is all digital, and I kind of consider it more garbage than real.
I think with some of those leaps and bounds that phones are experiencing, it is sort of opening more avenues for things like film and TV. And Amelia, we saw this year a very, very talked about film was shot on an iPhone. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yes, yeah, no, it was actually Danny Boyle used an iPhone to shoot parts of 28 Years Later. And what he did, well, he used it to get into tight spaces, places that you couldn't normally get into, and also for a look and feel. But what was really cool is in some shots, he recreated, and I'm quoting him here, a poor man's bullet time, which is essentially the Matrix effect. That's what we call it. Right. It's when Neo bends backwards and you get this kind of motion of going around him. They did a similar thing in 28 Years Later, and he did it with 20 iPhone 15 Pro Maxes, basically to get that wide aspect ratio for that big cinematic feeling for it. And the results are amazing. It's actually paying homage to how 28 Days Later was filmed. Because back then they used a Canon XL1, I want to say, which was very common. Lots of people had them lying around the house.
I had one as a student. Yeah.
There you go, there you go.
Afford it. It was like
ubiquitous.
$1,000 for one of those cameras.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone had one. And the idea was that it was supposed to have that found footage grittiness effect on it. But he's paying homage to it because the idea is now that iPhones are the camera tech that everyone has in their pockets. Yeah. So it was a nice tie in there. It wasn't the first film that's used an iPhone. No, like indie films use it quite often. Sean Baker famously used it in Tangerine to shoot it in its entirety. He also used it in the Florida Project. And then we also saw it recently in F1. Yes. Because what they did was a bit different, actually. They took a custom camera and they used iPhone technology to get some of the cockpit shots that you have in it. But they also used a modded Sony camera as well, the FX6. Yeah. It was that's the shots where you see basically Brad Pitt when he's racing, and it sort of pans quickly to Damson Idris. That's that camera on the front of the F1 cars. And the idea why they need to make it so custom was because these cars are traveling faster than 300 kilometers an hour. So there's lots of vibration that they have to get out. And it's just really exciting to see that there's still creativity even in the film space. It's not just at the consumer level. We're seeing it in Hollywood as well.
And AI can't do this, folks. So
no, exactly. 100%. Exactly. It can try its hardest to emulate it. But I think, especially with something like Formula One,
don't need my hat.
where it's... You've got lots of hats, though. You can just choose your least favourite one. No, in movies like F1 as well, where like there's like something really elemental to Formula One racing, right? There's something very sort of like rigid and raw. Like I don't think AI could capture that quite like a camera stripped to the top of a car that is going however many 100 miles an hour. I'd choose that any day. We are coming to the end of our time together today. But before we go, Tim, could you give our wonderful listeners, watchers, readers a couple of top tips on some of the best cameras that they can look for this year or good brands to buy?
Okay, good question. I'm going to go on getting your best bang for buck. So recently wrote about which brands offer the best value. And I put out a poll to TechRadar readers and
they were wrong.
50-60% of you were wrong. You said Sony. Sony make great cameras. However, I don't think they're the best value. The best value through Sony is actually the third-party lenses.
Right.
So many third-party brands start with Sony, so you can get really cheap lenses, really good ones. But if you're looking for a new camera, I think today Nikon has the best value across the board. It's mirrorless cameras at every point, entry level through to the high-end full-frame cameras. They're less, they cost less, and they do basically as well as the other brands. So Nikon's a great start. I think even Lance is a fan of Micro Four Thirds. OM System used to be called Olympus. OM System is a great brand if you just want a travel camera, one that's really rugged, one you can just rely upon, and it's really versatile for all kinds of photography, whether that's landscape photography, macro photography, wildlife. I think it's a great system as well. So those are some tips. Or get a camera that you just want to use. I think that's the main thing. You could chase specs and be impressed by stuff, but if you hold it and you don't feel anything, and it's just going to go on a cupboard, then it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
So something that you enjoy using.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just use your phone.
Yeah,
instead.
exactly. I think there are probably many, many, many cupboards and wardrobes with cameras that have been shelved in favour of phones. So do choose wisely. That is unfortunately all we have time for this week. A big thank you to Tim and Amelia for making their podcast debut and joining us this week. It's been lovely to have you both. If you want to hear more about all of the latest and greatest camera news, reviews and more, check out techradar.com and read up some of Tim and Amelia's fantastic content. If you want more from us, you can hit the subscribe button below. Check out the description box for some links to products and stories that we've talked about today, and we'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
So long.
Sweet.